let's move on to another very useful grammar form, 능것. 능것. So this is used for changing verbs into nouns, also called nominalization. So that sounds very complicated, sounds a bit confusing, but actually nominalization is a very important learning language tool, and we do it in English all the time. Like every day we do this. We nominalize things. Can you see the past page? This one? Yeah, that's it there. Now we're talking about 능것. So what is nominalization? It's turning verbs into nouns. And here we have an example sentence. 한국어를 공부하는 것을 좋아해요. This is the book Conversational Korean Grammar. Hey, good job. Yeah, I'm proud of you too. 한국어를 공부하는 것을 좋아해요. I have lives at least once or twice a week, but I don't have a set schedule, unfortunately. So the nominalization is happening on this noun here, studying. So in English, when you nominalize verbs, you typically add ing to the end. And what that does is it turns the verb into a noun, and that noun can then be acted on or described using verbs. And in English, these nominalized verbs are called gerunds. So if you know anything about linguistics, you might have heard about gerunds. And this is, Korean uses their own form of gerunds as well, using 능것. So how does this work? What you do is you take a verb, for example, 먹다, and you would remove 다, and you add 능것. So it gives you 먹는 것. You can get this book on Amazon, or you have, there's a PDFs on our website as well. There's a link in our bio if you're interested. So 먹는 것 is a noun, eating. Eating. 먹다 is the verb to eat, but 먹는 것 is the noun, eating. Similarly, 가다 becomes 가는 것, and it means the noun, going. 보다. Anyone can have a go at conjugating 보다 using 능것. What does that give you in Korean? How do you conjugate 보다 with 능것? Yeah, it means to look. 보다 means to look. Correct, yeah. 보는 것, perfect. Hot Pot Nation. Shaped Bunny, yeah. 보는 것. Ah, you guys are amazing. Good job. Lots of comments there. 보는 것, and it means the noun watching. And so what's the point of this? Why are we turning these verbs into nouns? Well, when you want to describe or act upon a verb, you have to nominalize it. For example, in English, it's very strange to say, I like eat, right? Or I like watch movies. That sounds very strange in English, right? And it's the same in Korean. The difference between ki and 능것. It's a very good question. I'll talk about that in a second. So by adding 능것 to the verbs, you are turning it into its noun form, which allows you to say things, I like eating, or I like, swimming, instead of saying I like eat or I like swim. So this is an important form that you need. Or for saying things like swimming is fun or studying is interesting, that kind of thing. This is why you need 능것. Conversational Korean Grammar is the name of this book. Someone asked the difference between 능것 and ki. So we talk about that later in the book in the ki section. Basically, Korean has two ways to nominalize verbs. There's 능것 and there's also ki. And they're very similar. 능것 is slightly more formal, slightly more used in writing, and ki is slightly more casual, slightly more used in speaking. Also, the other difference is 능것 is used for making generalizations about yourself. So if you want to say, in general, a fact about me is that I like swimming, you would say 수영하는 것을 좋아해요. I like swimming. If you use ki, it suggests that it's sort of situational. So maybe you don't always like swimming, but at this point in time, you are enjoying the swim that you're doing. You could say 수영하기 좋아해요. 수영하기를 좋아해요, or something like that. It's a very subtle difference, though. It's not necessarily a hard rule, and they are very interchangeable. Anyway, if you don't know anything about ki or nungot, don't worry about what I just said. Right now, we're just talking about nungot, and you can use this one basically all of the time. Okay, so thank you for the gifts. Thank you for the heart. I saw someone send some roses before. Thank you so much. Okay, so how you use this in a sentence. So there are 3 things you can add to nungot depending on how you want to use it in a sentence. So if you want to make the subject 나는 영화가 보는 것 좋아해요. Yeah, perfect, amazing. That means you like watching movies. Yeah, good job. So if you want to describe it in a sentence, say, for example, you want to say, studying is fun, studying is interesting, those use descriptive verbs. So you add 이, and it becomes 는 것이. Whereas, if you want to make an action upon the... oh my gosh, I'm sorry, it's so late. If you want to make an action upon the noun, you use the object particle, so it becomes 는 것을. This is when you want to say some things like, I enjoy studying, or I fear falling down, or something, I don't know. Anyway, you use for that. And you can also use the 는 topic particle as well if you want to make that nominalized verb, that gerund, the topic of your sentence. Let's look at some examples. 먹는 것이 재미있어요. So we're using a descriptive verb, 재미있다, which means to be fun or interesting. 먹는 것이 재미있어요 means eating is fun. And now we have to use this nungot because we're describing the action of eating. We can't say eat is fun. We have to say eating is fun. All right. I have some marks here from before, but that's all right. The next sentence is 피자를 먹는 것을 좋아해요. So here we're using an action verb. The action verb is 좋아하다, so we use the object particle and make 먹는 것을 to just say that I like, the action of like, I like eating pizza. And again, this ing in English comes from the nungot in Korean. And lastly, let's look at this one. What does this mean? 고기를 먹는 것을 좋아해요. Oh, I'm sorry. We're in the thick of it right now. 고기를 먹는 것을 좋아해요. What does this mean in English? I like eating meat. Yeah, shapes, perfect. Good job. I like eating meat. Vapi, bunny bun, yeah, amazing. That means I like eating meat. And this last one, actually, we had someone make this sentence before. So what does this sentence mean? 영화를 보는 것을 좋아해요. What does this mean in English? 영화를 보는 것을, I like watching movies. Yeah, Vapi's got it, Shake's got it. Yeah, perfect. It means I like watching movies. Okay. So, again, quickly, why do we do this? Why do we have to do this? Because you have to say this sort of form of the verb. I don't know if this Greek might be hard to say, but this is 먹는 것을 좋아해요 means I like eating. Right? But the movie I watched is good. You can do things like that as well, but I'm not going to go there right now. But anyway, 먹는 것을 좋아해요. 피가 어두? It's probably I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means actually. 먹는 것을 좋아해요. I like eating. But you can't just say something like this. It doesn't make sense. You know, it's kind of like saying I like eat in English. It doesn't work. Or 먹어를 or 먹다를, anything like that, it doesn't make sense in Korean. You have to say 먹는 것을 좋아해요. 영화를 보는 것을 좋아해요 is correct. I like watching movies. 영화를 보다를 좋아해요 is not correct. It doesn't make sense. It's kind of like saying I like watch movies. It's like caveman speak or something. It's very strange. I'm from New Zealand. 불고기. 불고기 is literally fire meat. 불 is fire and 고기 is meat. 불고기 is like grilled meat, flame grilled meat. Okay. So, another note, using 능것 with separable 하다 verbs. Now, we talked about separable 하다 verbs before, and they are 하다 verbs that contain nouns. There are 하다 verbs that are made by joining a noun and a 하다 together. 안녕하세요. I'm not Korean, but I have been learning for about 5 years. Okay, and I'm also the author of this book, I suppose, as well. One of the authors of this book. I'm not the only author of this book. Okay, so when you have a separable 하다 verb, you have the option of using 능것 because separable 하다 verbs already contain nouns. They already contain nouns. 비교 오도 means remarks. Cool. Why are there two lers in the sentence? Oh, that's a good question. Why are there two lers? Okay, so let's look at this a little bit more. We have the sentence 영화를 보는 것을 좋아해요. Now, there's no rule in Korean that you can only have, one particle or two particles. There's no rule that you can't repeat particles. It all depends on context and what you want to say. So, we have two actions here. We have 보다 and we have 좋아하다. They are both action verbs. 보다 means to see and 좋아하다 means to like. So because they're both action verbs, they both use the 을을 object particle. So to see a movie, you have to use the 을을 object particle. 영화를 보다 means to see a movie. And now we have 영화를 보는 것 means watching movies. You also like this, so it's another action. So you use the 을을 object particle. 영화를 보는 것을 좋아해요. If you wanted, there's some other options here. Say you wanted to say 영화를 보는 것이. Now we're using the 이카 subject particle, which means that we're going to use a descriptive verb. So let's say watching movies is fun. I don't know. 재미있어요. Thank you. So now we have the 이카 particle here and the 을을 object particle here. Again, because 보다 is an action verb, but 재미있다 is a descriptive verb. Yeah. 거 있어요. 거 있어요 is the present progressive tense. So you use that when you talk about actions in progress. So 보고 있어요 means I am watching. But it's not used to, you can't use 거 있다 when you're making sentences like this about acting or describing on nouns. If that makes sense. So you use 능것 when you're making sentences like, I like eating, I enjoy swimming, studying is fun. Whereas 거 있다 is used for making sentences like, right now I am learning Korean, or last year I was studying in Korea. That's when you use 거 있다. How do I say I like learning Korean? Not studying or learning. Not studying but learning. Is learning and studying the same? There are two different words in Korean. So 공부하다 is to study, but 배우다 is to learn. So you can use 배우다 instead of 공부하다 if you like. So 한국어를 배우는 것을 좋아해요. I enjoy learning Korean. So we can write that. 한국어를 배우는 것. Here comes our 는 것. And now, again, depending on how you want to finish this sentence, determines the particle that you use here. So when you're writing Korean sentences, you kind of already have to know what you're going to say in order to finish the stuff before. So if you want to say that studying Korean, that you like it, maybe you say 한국어를 배우는 것을 좋아해요. Because 좋아하다 is an action verb, you use 을을. But if you wanted to say, 배우는 것을 or 배우는 것이 좋아요, that it's good, that it's nice, that you enjoy it. 한국어를 배우는 것이 좋아요. But by the way, this is a very common mistake for beginner learners, where 좋아하다 is an action verb. It always uses 을을, and 좋다, 좋아요 is a descriptive verb, and it uses the 이카 subject particle. So it's very common to get those mixed up. But remember that 좋아하다 is action, 좋다 is descriptive. 한국어를 배우는 것이 어려워요. Oh yeah, perfect. That's a great sentence. 한국어를 배우는 것이 어려워요. That means studying Korean is difficult. Yeah, good job. Okay. Oh yeah, so we're talking about separable harder verbs. So what I'm saying here is that you have two options when you're using separable harder verbs. You can say 공부를 좋아해요. That's like saying I like study. I like study. Whereas 공부하는 것을 좋아해요 means I like studying. I enjoy the action of studying. They're both basically equivalent. You just kind of have those two options. For example, another example here, 요리가 싫어요. 싫어요 means something's dislikable. So here you're saying 요리, cooking, is dislikable, that you don't like cooking. But 요리하는 것이 싫어요 means you dislike the action of cooking. This book is Conversational Korean Grammar, and you can find it on Amazon, the Book Depository, a couple other retailers, and also we have PDFs on our website. Okay, and there's a link in our bio if you would like to go and find it. Thank you. So yeah, just you have two options. You can use either of these things, and they're basically equivalent. All right. Colloquially, this is another useful note, is that 눈got is a bit long and it's very frequently shortened. So when you're speaking, it's very common to shorten 눈got in a couple different ways. You can say 눈거 if you're dropping the particle. If you're not using a particle at all, you can say 눈거. If you're using the subject particle, it's commonly shortened to 는게. So that's a very common thing to see. If you're using the object particle, you can shorten it to 눈걸. And if you're using the topic particle, you can say 눈건. Again, this is more for spoken language. If you're writing anything very formal, or academic, you probably want to use the full form. But this is very common, particularly in speaking or just casually, very common to use these forms. And this is some examples as well. 공부하는 거 재미있어요. Here you've just dropped the particle and you've shortened the expression. This one, 요리하는 게 좋아요. Cooking is nice. 요리하는 게 좋아요. 한국어를 공부하는 걸 좋아해요. I like studying Korean. This is 는걸. And 고기를 먹는 건 안 좋아해요. So as for eating meat, I don't like it. 안 좋아해요. It's using our previous form 안 to mean not. How I learned Korean, sure. So I've learned a lot of different ways over the sort of 5 years. I did learn in Korea. I lived in Korea for a year, and I went to a language program at Mokpo Daeakgo, which is Mokpo University. They had a 6-month program that I went to. It was like an intensive immersion program, so I learned a lot very quickly from there. But then also I've done a lot of self-study. I've done a lot of just exposure. I've read books and watched movies and done all of that stuff as well. But yeah, that's kind of how I got here. Okay, so we have, how long have I been going for now? Oh yeah, we can keep going a little bit more. Okay. Oh, did I take lessons or learn by myself? I took both. I've done both. So I have taken lessons. I did the course in Mokpo Daehakyo, Seoul University. Oh my gosh, I hope you get to go. That would be an amazing experience. So I went to one at Mokpo Daehakyo, Mokpo University. So I went to classes there. And I also went to classes here in the US. A lot of Korean culture centers do classes. My coworker Chelsea actually taught Korean at a culture center for 2 years. So there's classes you can find in the US as well. And I recommend that as well. Yeah. How fluent am I in Korean? Oh my gosh, that's a very difficult question to answer. I would say I'm not 100% fluent. My most recent test that I took placed me at intermediate advanced. So I can say that. This book is Conversational Korean Grammar. And it is available for purchase if you would like. Okay. We had a lot of questions. Anyone else have any other questions? I'll keep going for this. How often do I do live streams? I try and do one at least once a week, maybe twice a week. I'm trying to figure out a definite schedule, but I'm not 100% sure what I can commit to. I kind of do it when I have fun. And I've been learning Korean for about 5 years. I made this book along with my coworker Chelsea, and Chelsea has been learning Korean for over 10 years. So between the two of us, it's got sort of over 15 years of knowledge that's in this book.